Hi, everybody. I'm Taylor of The Sheepish Goat. You're watching the channel. I'm in sort of heavy mood today, so fair warning if you are watching this. Just know that it is deliberate because we're going to be talking about some things. The question of the video is, at least the framework in which I'm trying to describe my feelings in this information is, why do we create? Why do I create? Which will kind of be the topic of this, and hopefully throughout you will have your own internal realizations or understanding, or perhaps it'll just make you think a little bit. That's the hope. So why do I create? There's a couple of reasons. I think really, though, to touch on that, I need to talk first about how I felt as a child. Perhaps you didn't know we would go here when you clicked on this video. Welcome. Buckle up. As a child, I was made to feel that I was too much, that I was too emotional, that I was too loud, that I was too needy. Because of that, maybe sort of shut down a little bit in some capacity. I recall that there was a period when I was younger where I really struggled with taking critique. I can think of times when I would go like bowling and I would be bad and I would throw the ball and it would go in the gutter. I would miss every pin. I'm a big sports person. And I would get upset when someone would try to critique me. I would be emotional about it. And it happened because I didn't feel like I could not be perfect. I didn't feel like I could. It's not that I couldn't be bad at something, but I felt that I couldn't be a problem. And in not being a problem, I was afraid of being a problem, and then inherently would be emotional because people having to explain something to me or take their time to focus on me became an issue. For the sake of me being emotional, it still, until recently, has been often told to me that as a child I was needy and emotional, and to the point of that of, yes, I was, also means that I still am. And in some capacity, it means that I cannot be. So therefore, I cannot be myself. But I was emotional, and I am still emotional. And as a point of reference, some of the things that get brought up to me is that I would cry. Not just all the time, but I would cry when we got a new dishwasher. I cried when my mom cut her hair. I cried when we got a new car. But if I look critically at those things, it means that I struggled with change. And I didn't understand why things were changing around me. I didn't have a say in why things were changing around me. They just changed. And I had to figure out what that meant for me. But of course, that wasn't explored when I was a child. I was just too emotional and too needy. I wanted attention. I wanted to be played with. I was, I guess, kind of hyper, maybe. But that obviously stopped. Do I look like a hyper person if you're looking at me now? I was told I was too loud. Like I said, I have distinct memory of being at my friend's house. I remember him telling me that his parents didn't always want me to spend the night because I was too loud when I was over there. And that's always stuck with me and resonated. So to the point of me being needy and emotional, what that did is it caused me to kind of go internally. I was always a nervous kid, just like self-conscious, I guess. And I don't know, what came first, the chicken or the egg scenario of being called emotional and needy or just started to feel that way just by myself. But I would play by myself a lot. I didn't like to call my friends to hang out. I was like, luckily I had people who wanted to spend time with me. That's a bad thing that's plagued my entire life, and maybe we'll get into that here. But I would spend a lot of time by myself. So I became self-reliant, and I learned to not require other people because I didn't want to be needy. Because I kind of had to be, like I said, that feeling of perfect. Couldn't rely on anybody else because I couldn't be a problem. And that's where creation starts to come in for me. I've always drawn and done different forms of art and creative things. I enjoy it, I think. As a kid, my brother used to draw and do a lot of that stuff, and I would think that I was inspired by him to draw. It would make sense, right? I mean, you always kind of want to do what your older sibling is doing. I actually struggled with it for a little bit because he stopped doing art stuff later on. And in some capacity, it truly felt like I kind of took that from him. I don't know if that's true, but I felt that. And I felt that because for me, drawing kind of became my identity. So drawing originally for me, I think, was an escape. That's something I've recently figured out. I use drawing as an emotional resource. You know, I would be in my room a lot. I would be drawing. Sometimes some like heavier stuff. But that's how I would fill my time. That's how I would detach. That's how I would process, I guess. Now, I never knew that. I just liked drawing. And like I said, I got praised for it. It kind of became the thing that I was known for. But to the counterpoint, it became kind of an imprisonment, because I remember specifically, like as I got older and I drew more and I got better at it, that people would want me to draw things for them. But some of those people weren't my friends. They just wanted it for a project or something. And I got to be known basically as a drawing person. I'm the drawing kid. Nice to meet you. And unfortunately, that's a very limiting thing, because you feel as if the thing that kind of gave you a purpose, the thing that gave you an identity or a form of attention, right? Which I craved. I wanted to feel like there was something unique about me, a reason. Sort of became the thing that I didn't like anymore because it felt like a box. I learned early on that I didn't want to do drawing professionally as a career because I didn't like the idea of doing it for other people. And now, obviously, if I would have explored that more, I would have realized that I didn't like doing it for other people because I didn't like the pressure associated with it. Because again, for me, drawing was an escape. Drawing was a release. It was the way in which I kind of took stock of myself. Again, not fully aware of that. But that eventually transformed into my other creative pursuit. Like my two creative pursuits, if you will. That turned into acting. When I was in 8th grade, I was prepositioned. That sounds like a weird word choice, but I was by the teacher at the time who was trying to put on a play. She asked several kids in her class. I don't know why I was asked. It's very possible she asked fucking every boy in the class. And for some reason, I guess I decided to go and audition. But in auditioning for that, and it was a production of Meet Me in St. Louis. In auditioning for that, I liked it. And I was praised for like doing a good job. It got me attention. I wasn't just the drawing kid, I guess, anymore. So when high school came around, I did some theater productions. I don't think I did it freshman year. I don't think so. But then I started to actively do it more and more, and I did it through college, and I really liked it because I think drawing, like I said, was an escape, but it was so isolating, right? No one really asks you about your drawings. It's more like they see you drawing and they think it's cool, and they might have a comment or, like I said, ask you for a piece of art. But that's about it. It doesn't really feel like most people actually care. With theater, it garnered much more attention, right? It's an audience thing. It's the way that people can directly see you, and you're allowed to express yourself. You're allowed to have emotions, to be safe, to feel like, yeah, it's okay to do this. It's okay to be this other person because it's what I'm supposed to do. It's like contract, right? It is the goal. I remember for that 8th grade performance, it was described to me to be more animated. I don't know why that feels resonant at the moment. But when we were going through, because I don't think really anybody had done any acting before, and I remember the instructor telling me, to be more animated in like my delivery. And I didn't know what that word meant, and I remember my mom kind of describing it. Really, it was just being more playful, being more expressive. Some of the things that I feel like in some capacity I had been told not to do in my real life. So, acting, I enjoyed. Like I said, I did it through college. And there came a point with acting where I remember that, some of my shows, not all my family would come to. In general, they were really supportive, but I remember the instances specifically in which they weren't there. And I kind of struggle with that, feeling bad about feeling bad about that. Because, for example, now I make videos online, and I pretty adamant in telling people like, hey, don't feel like you need to watch my videos, or I appreciate you watching, but really don't feel the need. It's all right. You don't need to do that. Because for my own self, if I'm being completely honest and authentic to me, like I wouldn't want the obligation of having to do that for another person, because inherently I feel like I give a lot. As a child, my parents were divorced, and they got divorced when I was pretty young, and I was parentified. I think a lot of kids go through that, and I'm still understanding what that means for me. But I've always been a mediator. I've always been the emotional stability, which is ironic because I was always so emotional as a kid, right? But it's the point in which I could understand. Because for myself, I understood emotion, or I had emotion at least. So being a stable force kind of became my identity as well. And throughout many of my relationships in my life, I've kind of become that point of stability. And unfortunately, because of that, I often feel like I am the parent in most situations, even sometimes with my parents. I felt more mature than a lot of people. I remember feeling that way specifically in high school. But to the point of acting, I really felt bad when people I cared about didn't come see me perform in my shows. I remember I was working at a pizza place, and I was close to those people. I worked there for several years, and I remember them saying they would come see me. Not even my family, just friends, right? But it was talked about several times. They knew the date, the time of the show, said they would come. They didn't come. And looking back on it now, right, that was another point of identity for me. It was another point of validity in being a person. It was how I crafted my identity. It wasn't deliberate. And I think originally they came from really pure places of me just liking to create, me feeling like I had space to be myself, right? But what it eventually turned into is kind of this toxic trope in which I'm reliant on the feedback of other people. Now, if you're aware, you're watching a YouTube video. So how do you think I feel about making videos? Perhaps you're starting to understand why I create. So this all came from this deficit position, right? I felt like I needed to express myself. I felt like I wanted to be seen. I wanted to feel like there was a reason that I existed, right? That there was a reason for me to be interesting, to find uniqueness within myself so people would see me and appreciate me, because me by myself was clearly too needy and too emotional. So this video stemmed from the idea that I've been really struggling with wanting to make art, with the idea of doing like drawing type videos on this channel. You know, I really strive for integrity. I strive for an authentic portrayal of myself. And even saying a portrayal sounds weird because it feels like I'm trying to only show this one version of me. I'm not. That's not what I mean. I want to be honest because I want to understand who I am. And in understanding who I am, I want other people to see the real me and accept that. But inherently, I don't feel like the me of just this is enough, right? I feel like I have to do other things. So I do art and stuff on this channel. And the idea of just making a video where I'm drawing feels hollow. It doesn't feel like there's enough there because it doesn't feel like there's enough me in it. And that's because art, I don't think, was ever supposed to be me. I think art, maybe it was my brother. Maybe it was just my escape. How I processed feelings of inadequacy or sadness or pain. How I detached, right? So without there being that other layer to it, it feels wrong for me to make a video that's just me drawing. It feels inauthentic. It doesn't feel good. So I don't know how to proceed with that mindset, right? Because can I have my cake and eat it too? It's not really what I mean. Can I reconcile that and turn it into something else? Or does it have to remain that one thing? You know, for me at the moment, I have a job. I've talked about that in previous videos. It's good. There's no stress. Do I like it? No. Does it give me time to exist and be a person? Yeah. That feels important. Feels very important. And, you know, when I come home now, I'm looking for the free time so that I can make videos. But generally when I come home, I'm tired. I just want to kind of do nothing, but I usually will draw. I'll force myself to draw. But to the point of drawing, like, see, I felt so conflicted about drawing for a while, and I didn't understand why until I came to some of these thoughts. There was a point when I drew earlier on where I would make more realistic pieces. I would draw in the idea of realism. I would draw, you know, family members and faces. And one of my favorite things that I drew was a picture of Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka. Really loved that movie growing up. Which you're allowed to read into that however much you want. But there hit a point where that didn't really matter to me anymore. So when I draw now, I often feel that I'm trying to escape the idea of perfectionism, right? Like I said, as a child, that felt ingrained in me, that I had to feel like I was perfect, that I was the stable one, that I was in control, that I could be a support system for other people, that I wasn't a problem. So when I draw, I don't care about getting to that perfectionist state anymore. You know, I think inherently it wants to creep in when I make something. Doesn't matter what it is. It wants to take control. It wants me to make it perfect because I want the validation of other people. I want the confirmation that, man, you did a really good job. I can tell how much effort you put into it. You must be really talented. That's what I'm looking for. That false sense of bolstering myself to feel valid in my existence. I'm still relying on the feedback of other people, right? But I'm trying to get away from that. So when I draw something now, I often get to a point where I hit that moment and I realize, is this good enough? Am I satisfied with this? And usually that happens before I even finish the piece of art. Usually that happens when I've just like expressed the idea, right? I've done like the sketching work and I've basically roughed out the whole piece. I haven't done finished line work. I haven't colored it. I haven't in any way got it to this crazy full render that's this beautiful piece of art that meets the standard of what most artists, I guess, put out into the world. But it usually satisfies me. Because for me, the creation is the exploration of the idea. It's the freedom to just be in that, detach from my day, have a moment of isolation and focus. But I always feel that pressure that I have to make it more. I always feel that pressure that it has to be this perfect thing, and that gives me so much conflict within myself. I feel like I'm fighting myself because as I think about art, as I think about creating things, I don't know where I fit into that anymore. Like I said, I've always been the drawing guy, even though I knew early on that I didn't want to do anything like that professionally. I wanted to be the acting guy until I thought about how much that might take for me in my life. How much sacrifice, how much hardship, how much I'd have to get out of my own comfort zone. And part of that scared me and part of that excited me. So if I strip away these things that unfortunately turned into this way to identify myself, what's left over? Who am I without drawing? Who am I without art? Am I valid? Am I interesting enough as just a person? It can be hard to look at yourself, to really do the work, because it doesn't really usually leave you with an answer. It leaves you with more questions. It can leave you with a hollowness inside that feels dark and scary. But the darkness isn't bad. And I'm not without hope. You know, I don't know what I'm doing on this channel, or in my life for that matter. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But I know who I am. And I just want to be me. Without the baggage. Without the need for other people's approval. To just exist and be happy. To feel seen and be loved by someone who appreciates me as just me. Not for the things that I can do, the talents I have, that are really all superficial anyway. So the darkness is good to look at. But, if you're in your basement and it's dark and you need to run up the stairs because you're afraid someone's chasing you up, that's okay too. But it's important to turn around and look at that. Because that's not a monster. That's just you. And you deserve to be seen. You deserve to exist, to be unique. Even if you do live in the shadows, on the stairs, under the couch, in the background of your subconscious. You're still in there. You still matter. And you owe it to yourself to find that. And let yourself see the daylight sometime. So I don't know what that means for me in creating an art and voice acting and all the things that I think I care about. But I think it means that I'm more me. And I hope it means that you can be more you. So look at yourself. All of yourself. And know that it's okay if you have sadness. Know it's okay if you're mad about how you got to where you're at. You're allowed to be mad at people you love. You're allowed to be angry with yourself. But understanding is the most important thing. Because people make mistakes. People lie to themselves. But you can change. And you can be you too. So I think I'll end it there. I don't know how I create going forward. But I'm going to figure it out. So until next time, everybody. See you then. Bye. How's this sound? How's this look? Is it okay? How does it feel? How does it sound? Is it all right? Is it all good? Is it all grand?